Now we're going to finish reading about the attribute standards, and we left off at due professional care, which is attribute standard number 1200. Engagements must be performed with proficiency in due professional care. I may even have read the definition of proficiency, but you get the privilege of hearing it again. Attribute 1210, proficiency. No, we're going to go directly to 1220, due professional care. Internal auditors must apply the care and skill expected of a reasonably prudent and competent internal auditor. Due professional care does not imply infallibility. 1220.A1, internal auditors in assurance activities must exercise due professional care by considering 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1. Extent of work needed to achieve the engagement's objectives. 2. Relative complexity, materiality, or significance of matters to which assurance procedures are applied. 3. Adequacy and effectiveness of governance, risk management, and control processes. 4. Probability of significant errors, fraud, or noncompliance. And 5, cost of assurance in relation to potential benefits. 1220.A2. In exercising due professional care, internal auditors must consider the use of technology-based audit and other data analysis techniques. Must consider the use of technology-based, I think, computer-assisted auditing techniques. CAT is a good term for what they're referring to here. Technology-based and other data analysis techniques, such as continuous auditing. Attribute standard 1220.A3, internal auditors must be alert to the significant risks that might affect objectives, operations, or resources. However, assurance procedures alone, even when performed with due professional care, do not guarantee that all significant risks will be identified. 1220.C1, internal auditors must exercise due professional care during consulting engagement by considering the following 3 bullets, which is needs and expectations of clients, including the nature, timing, and communication of engagement results, relative complexity and extent of work needed to achieve the engagement's objectives, and cost of the consulting engagement in relation to potential benefits. 1230, continuing professional development. Internal auditors must enhance their knowledge, skills, and other competencies through continuing professional development. Believe it or not, that is all that is being said, and we're moving directly to the attribute standard for the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program. The Chief Audit Executive must develop and maintain a quality assurance and improvement program that covers all aspects of the internal audit activity. Interpretation. A quality assurance and improvement program is designed to enable an evaluation of the internal audit activity's conformance with the standards and an evaluation of whether internal auditors apply the code of ethics. The program also assesses the efficiency and effectiveness of the internal audit activity and identifies opportunities for improvement. The Chief Audit Executive should encourage board oversight in the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program. A little extra explanation as to how would be nice. 1310, requirements of the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program. The Quality Assurance and Improvement Program must include both internal and external assessments. To answer my earlier question, the board is involved in looking at the results of an external assessment. Perhaps in the internal and external assessment, we're going to get more information about board involvement. 1311, internal assessments. They must include 1 and 2. 1 ongoing monitoring of the performance and the internal audit activity, and 2, periodic self-assessments or assessments by other persons within the organization with sufficient knowledge of internal audit practices. Interpretation. Ongoing monitoring is an integral part of the day-to-day supervision, review, and measurement of the internal audit activity. Ongoing monitoring is incorporated into the routine policies and practices used to manage the internal audit activity and uses processes, tools, and information considered necessary to evaluate the conformance with the Code of Ethics and the standards. Periodic assessments are conducted to evaluate conformance with the Code of Ethics and the standards. Sufficient knowledge of internal audit practices requires at least an understanding of all elements of the international professional practices framework. 12.13 External assessments. External assessments must be conducted at least once every 5 years by a qualified independent assessor or assessment team from outside the organization. The Chief Audit Executive must discuss with the Board 1 and 2, 1. The form and frequency of external assessments, and 2. The qualifications and independence of an external assessor or assessment team, including any potential conflict of interest. Interpretation. External assessments may be accomplished through a full external assessment or a self-assessment with independent external validation. The external assessor must conclude as to conformance with the Code of Ethics and the standards. The external assessment may also include operational and strategic comments. A qualified assessor and assessment team. So basically what that is saying is that the main part of the report is going to be about the internal audit activities conformance with the Code of Ethics and standards. However, operational and strategic comments are welcomed. A qualified assessor or assessment team demonstrates competence in 2 areas of the professional practice of internal auditing and the external assessment process. Competence can be demonstrated through a mixture of experience and theoretical learning. Experience gained in organizations of similar size, complexity, sector, industry, and technical issues is more valuable than less relevant experience. In the case of an assessment team, not all members of the team need to have all the competencies. It is just the team as a whole that is qualified. The Chief Audit Executive uses professional judgment when assessing whether an assessor or assessment team demonstrates sufficient competence to be qualified. An independent assessor or assessment team means not having either an actual or perceived conflict of interest and not being a part of or under the control of an organization to which the internal audit activity belongs. The Chief Audit Executive should encourage board oversight in the external assessment to reduce perceived or potential risks of conflicts of interest. 13.20 Reporting on the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program. The Chief Audit Executive must communicate the results of the QAIP to senior management and the board. Disclosure should include the scope and frequency of both the internal and external assessments as 1, 2, the qualification and independence of the assessors or assessment team, including potential conflicts of interest, 3, conclusions of assessors, and 4, corrective action plans. Interpretation. The form, content, and frequency of communicating the results of the QAIP is established through discussions with senior management and the board and considers the responsibilities of the internal audit activity and Chief Audit Executive as contained in the Internal Audit Charter. To demonstrate conformance with the Code of Ethics and the standards, the results of external and periodic internal assessments are communicated under completion of such assessments, and the results of ongoing monitoring are communicated at least annually. The results include the assessors or assessment team's evaluation with respect to the degree of conformance with the standards in the Code of Ethics. Attribute Standard 1321, use of conforms with the international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing. indicating that the internal audit activity conforms with the international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing is appropriate only if supported by the results of the QAIP program. Interpretation: the internal audit activity conforms with the Code of Ethics and the standards when it achieves the outcomes described therein. The results of the Quality Assurance and Improvement Program include the results of both internal and external assessments. All internal audit activities will have the results of internal assessments. Internal audit activities in existence for at least 5 years will also have the results of external assessments, meaning retain it for up to 5 or more years. 1322, disclosure of conformance. When nonconformance with the Code of Ethics or the standards impacts the overall scope or operation of the internal audit activity, the Chief Audit Executive must disclose the nonconformance and the impact to senior management and the board. So the performance standards make up the second big portion of the standards. Performance standards describe the nature of internal audit activities and provide certain criteria against which the performance of these services can be evaluated. So in section 2000, the discussion is mainly managing the internal audit activity, which includes planning, resource management, communication and approval, policies and procedures, coordination and reliance, reporting to senior management and the board, external service provider and organizational responsibility for internal auditing. 2100 series of the performance standards includes the nature of the work, governance, risk management, and control. 2200 series is engagement planning, such as planning considerations, engagement objectives, engagement scope, engagement resource allocation, engagement work program. Performing an engagement is the beginning of the 2300 series. That includes identifying information, analysis and evaluation, and documenting information. Engagement supervision is also part of that section about what the work program. My short-term memory, performing the engagement, is 2300 series. 2400 series is communicating results, the criteria for communicating, quality of communications, errors and omissions, use of, as we said, conducted in conformance with the international standards for the professional practice of internal auditing, which goes back to the QAIP again. Engagement, disclosure of nonconformance, and disseminating results, which many times has to which at all times has to respect confidentiality principles. And the overall opinions. The 2500 series involves monitoring progress. The 2600 series is communicating the acceptance of risk, and that makes up the performance standards. Do I strongly suggest reading, at the very least, the governance, risk management, and control sections of, I think, the 2200 series? Yes. Is it something that we're doing right now? Maybe not. Maybe so, it's not so long. Okay, so within 2100, 2110, 2100 Nature of work. The internal audit activity must evaluate and contribute to the improvement of the organization's governance, risk management, and control processes using a systematic, disciplined, and risk-based approach. Internal audit credibility and value are enhanced when auditors are proactive and their evaluations offer new insights and consider future impact. Governance 2110. The internal audit activity must assess and make appropriate recommendations to improve the organization's governance processes for making strategic and operational decisions. 1. 2. Overseeing risk management and control. 3. Promoting appropriate ethics and values within the organization. 4. Ensuring effective organizational performance. And management and accountability. 5. Communicating risk and control information to appropriate areas of the organization. And 6. Coordinating the activities of and communicating information among the board, external and internal auditors, other assurance providers, and management. As it relates to assurance activities, the internal audit activity discussed here in 2110.A1 must evaluate the design, implementation, and effectiveness of the organization's ethics-related objectives, programs, and activities. And 2110.A2, the audit activity must assess whether the information technology governance of the organization supports the organization's strategies and objectives. So, it must consider the maturity level or competency of the IT governance, which generally presents itself as the existence of like an IT steering committee. And before that, we're discussing the evaluation of the design, implementation, and effectiveness of the organization's ethics-related objectives, programs, and activities, which, depending on size, most people would know as, like, say, a whistleblower hotline and the existence and maintenance thereof. 2110 Risk Management. Performance Standard 2120 Risk Management. The internal audit activity must evaluate the effectiveness and contribute to the improvement of risk management processes. Interpretation. Determining whether risk management processes are effective is a judgment resulting from the internal auditor's assessment that 1 through 4, 1. Organizational objectives support and align with the organization's mission, and 2. Significant risks are identified and assessed. 3. Appropriate risk responses are selected that align risks with the organization's risk appetite. And 4. Relevant risk information is captured and communicated in a timely manner across the organization, enabling staff, management, and the board to carry out their responsibilities. Now, the internal audit activity may gather the information to support this assessment during multiple engagements. The results of these engagements, when viewed together, provide the understanding of the organization's risk management processes and their effectiveness. So there's some general risk assessments that are going to need to get done, and most of them are going to be based upon the organization's mission. Plain and simple. Do all organizations need to have wires or electronic banking risk assessment? No, only banking organizations whose mission is to make money or have a successful banking operation. Is it appropriate for a grocery store? Maybe, if they offer those services. Is it appropriate for a doctor's office? Probably not, unless payments includes those areas. And again, you're looking at it on a from a risk-based stance, and through the lens of what the organization has held to be their mission, from their mission statement. Risk management processes are monitored through ongoing management activities, separate evaluations, or both. Now, Performance Standard 2120.A1, which is relative to assurance activities, reads, the internal audit activity must evaluate risk exposures relating to the organization's governance, operations, and information systems regarding the 1 through 5. 1. Achievement of the organization's strategic objectives. 2, reliability and integrity of financial and operational information. 3, effectiveness and efficiency of operations and programs. 4, safeguarding of assets. And 5, compliance with laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and contracts. All of which are very important. 2120.A2, the internal audit activity must evaluate the potential for the occurrence of fraud and how the organization manages fraud risk. 2120.C1, during consulting engagements, internal auditors must address risk consistent with the engagement's objectives and be alert to the existence of other significant risks. 2120.C2, internal auditors must incorporate knowledge of risks gained from consulting engagements into their evaluation of the organization's risk management processes. And 2120.C3, when assisting management in establishing or improving risk management processes, internal auditors must refrain from assuming any management responsibility by actually managing risks. And lastly, 2130, control. The internal audit activity must assist the organization in maintaining effective controls by evaluating their effectiveness and proficiency and by promoting continuous improvement. 2130.A1, the internal audit activity must evaluate the adequacy and effectiveness of controls in responding to risks within the organization's governance, operations, and information systems regarding the achievement of the organization's strategic objectives. 1. 2. Reliability and integrity of financial and operational information. 3. Effectiveness and efficiency of operations and programs. 4. Safeguarding of assets. And 5. Compliance with laws, regulations, policies, procedures, and contracts. This sounds just like the risk management section, but we're reading it out of the control section. 2130.C1, internal auditors must incorporate knowledge of controls gained from consulting engagements into evaluation of the organization's control processes. And so that is, in a nutshell, GRC, governance, risk management, and control, which is at the heart of our planning process and our engagement. This is where I'm going to break. However, there are more sections of the professional